Welcome to Bethlehem Academy. In this video, we are going to look at the process of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a process used by plants and other organisms to convert light energy into chemical energy. So first point that you need to know about the photosynthesis is it's a process which is used by mostly plants but not restricted only to plants. Even other organisms also are involved in photosynthesis. They convert light energy into chemical energy. So that's a very important point. So next point is this chemical energy is stored in the form of a carbohydrate molecules such as sugars which are synthesized from carbon dioxide and water. So when you have carbon dioxide and water which are given in the presence of a sunlight, plants convert them into carbohydrate molecules. So the name photosynthesis has come from a Greek word which is a combination of two words. One is phos, which means light, and synthesis, which means putting it together. That means light puts together the carbon dioxide and H2O into carbohydrate molecules. It is effectively the food for every organism in the entire universe. So the major food that we have derives from the plants. So the plants made the food from the photosynthesis process. In photosynthesis, oxygen is released as a waste product. That is waste for plants, but it is the most essential product for every living organism. So byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen. Not only plants but also some algae and also cyanobacteria also perform photosynthesis. All these organisms which perform photosynthesis and produce their own food are called autotrophs. Autotrophs means auto means self, trophos means nutrition. So autotrophs means those organisms which provide their own nutrition. That is called, those organisms are called autotrophs. Photosynthesis is responsible for producing and maintaining the oxygen level of the Earth's atmosphere. As we have seen, photosynthesis releases oxygen. So this oxygen in the atmosphere will be maintained by the photosynthesis process. It's not only that, it also supplies organic compounds are effectively the food for every organism on Earth. Not only that, the energy necessary for every organism is also produced by photosynthesis. So you might have realized by now, photosynthesis process gives us oxygen, gives us food, and gives us energy, which is basically effectively essential for the life on Earth. So we can call it as the basis of the life on Earth. A simple reaction or a general reaction for photosynthesis is given as CO2, 6 molecules of CO2, 12 molecules of H2O in the presence of light energy and the chlorophyll which is present in a plant leaf will give us a sugar, that is C6H12O6, and water vapor and also oxygen as outputs. Let's look at the process of photosynthesis. Where does the photosynthesis takes place and how does it take place is an interesting question. As we all know, photosynthesis takes place in a plant, and also in the plant, particularly it happens in a chloroplast. So if you have not seen my earlier video, I would suggest that you watch the video. In that I have described the process of structure of chloroplast. So this is the chloroplast in which the photosynthesis takes place. So we have learned this structure in the previous video, which is very important to understand the structure of the chlorophyll before we go to this photosynthesis process. So I suggest that you go back and watch the video on the chloroplast. So photosynthesis takes place in chloroplast. It occurs in two phases. One phase is called a light dependent phase and other phase is called a light independent phase. It is called a light dependent phase because this phase occurs in the presence of light. The other phase is called a light independent phase because it occurs in the absence of light, so it does not need light. So let's look at each phase. First phase is light dependent phase, or this is also known as photochemical phase. This light dependent phase occurs only in the presence of light. Chlorophyll present in thylakoids is activated by light, which splits water. Okay, this is called photolysis of water. Photolysis means photos means light, or phos means light, that is photo means light, and then lysis means splitting. So photolysis means splitting by light. What are we splitting? We are splitting the water by using the light. Where does the splitting will happen? The splitting will happen in chlorophyll, which is present in the thylakoids. That is, these are the thylakoids that we have seen. So these structures, this is a chloroplast structure, and these are the thylakoids, and it is where this reaction, that is the light dependent phase, will happen. So what chlorophyll pigment that is present in the thylakoids will be activated as soon as the solar light falls on them, and this activated chlorophyll splits the water into H2 and O2. So the equation can be written as 2H2O is equal to H and H2 and O2. So the water is split by energy of photons. Photon is the basic structure or the basic unit of light. So photon is the light simply. So water in the presence of light splits into hydrogen and then oxygen. The hydrogen ions thus produced are used in converting NADP into NADPH. What is NADP? NADP is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. It is simply one type of an enzyme. So this NADP converts to NADPH by taking NADP. By taking H plus ions, NADP plus E minus plus H plus in the presence of enzyme gives rise to NADPH. Similarly, during this light dependent phase, ADP, which is called adenosine diphosphate, takes up the phosphorus and gets converted into adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. So this is called photophosphorylation. That means in the presence of light, phosphorus is added, that is phosphorylation. So photophosphorylation. So ADP gets converted into ATP. So there are two products that are produced during the light dependent phase. One is NADPH and another one is ATP. So if you see here, as soon as the light falls on the thylakoid, so the thylakoids produce NADP and NADPH and ATP, which will become the input for the next phase, that is the light independent phase. So the next phase in the photosynthesis reaction is light independent phase or biosynthetic phase. This is also known as Calvin cycle. During this process, the real fixation of CO2 occurs. That means the reaction takes place, this reaction takes place in stroma. It is very important to understand the difference where the first reaction and the second phase takes place. The first phase, that is a light dependent phase, takes place in thylakoids. Second phase, that is light independent reaction, takes place in the stroma. Stroma is the proteinaceous liquid in the chloroplast, that is, this is stroma. So the brown color is stroma. So the Calvin phase, Calvin cycle, or the light independent phase, takes place within the stroma. What will happen in this? The atmospheric CO2 will be fixed by RUBP, or ribulose biphosphate. So ribulose biphosphate fixes the CO2. Then this CO2, in the presence of ATP and NADPH, which are the products of light dependent phase, and then in the presence of electrons, gets converted into sugar and also water. And also other products also produced, that is RUBP will be recycled. That means you will get this RUBP back, and also ADP is again produced, and also phosphorus is produced, and then NADP plus is also produced. So if you see from the first phase that we got NADPH and ATP, which are used in the Calvin cycle, and then NADP plus and ADP are produced, which will again be used by the light dependent phase, and the reaction goes on. So NADP plus and also ADP both are used in the light dependent phase. So the reaction continues to go on using these inputs. So this is the process of photosynthesis. Very easy. It takes place in two phases. One is light dependent phase, another one is light independent phase. Light dependent phase, we have the production of NADPH and ATP, and in the light independent phase, we major product is sugar, but it requires the presence of NADP and ATP, which are produced in the light dependent phase. So let's look at the external factors affecting photosynthesis. There are some factors which will affect the photosynthesis. What are those factors which affect the photosynthesis? There are two set of factors. One are called external factors, other set of factors are called internal factors. External factors, the first external factor is the light intensity. Obviously we know that light is the major source for the photosynthesis, or the light energy gets converted into chemical energy in the photosynthesis. When the light intensity increases, then we expect the rate of photosynthesis to increase. So what we are seeing here is a graph between the rate of photosynthesis on y-axis and light intensity on x-axis. We see as light intensity is increasing, the rate of photosynthesis is increasing as expected. But beyond a certain limit, it plateaus out or it saturates. That means even if you increase the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis will not increase further. Similarly, CO2 concentration. So we know that CO2 is also input in the photosynthesis. So if you increase the CO2, then we expect the rate of photosynthesis to increase. So that is what we see here. But beyond a certain limit, the rate of photosynthesis will remain constant, however much CO2 that you increase. Then next factor that will affect the process of photosynthesis is temperature. The optimum temperature for the photosynthesis is 35 degrees centigrade. Beyond 40 degrees centigrade, the photosynthesis does not occur. Below 35 degrees centigrade, the rate of photosynthesis is low. So there is an optimum temperature at which the rate of photosynthesis is maximum. So this is the 35 degrees centigrade line. So below this temperature, we have a less rate of photosynthesis. Beyond this, also we have less rate of photosynthesis. And water content. For example, if there is a scarcity of water in a place, then plant transpiration does not take place. That means the stoma in the plant, the stoma of the plant will be closed because there is no water. So these gaps are closed. Then when the gaps are closed, these gaps are closed to reduce the transpiration. But when the gaps are closed, CO2 also will not come into the plant. So then obviously the photosynthesis does not take place. So that is why whenever there is a water scarcity, then the plants will not actually grow faster. There are also internal factors that affect the photosynthesis. They are chlorophyll. First factor is chlorophyll. For example, in sometimes because of the nutritional deficiency of minerals, the chlorophyll in the plants or the leaves will be lost. Sometimes you might see some of the leaves are like either white or yellowish, but they are not definitely green. So the color apart from green shows that there is no chlorophyll in the green leaf, because the green color of the leaf comes from the chlorophyll. Whenever the pigment is absent, chlorophyll pigment is absent, the color of the leaf changes to some other, either yellow or white. So whenever the chlorophyll is lost, for example, because of the nutritional deficiency in the plant, then the photosynthesis will be less. Similarly, protoplasm, if the dehydration of the protoplasm occurs, then that also reduces the photosynthesis because we need the water for the photosynthesis. For example, if the accumulation of carbohydrates which are produced during the photosynthesis are not moving away, or that means if at this particular site within the leaf, if the carbohydrates are produced, these carbohydrates have to move away. If they are not moving away, then further photosynthesis does not take place. So the accumulation of carbohydrate should not take place. If it takes place, it reduces the rate of photosynthesis. Other factors like thickness of the cuticle. If the thickness of the cuticle, that is of axil layer upon the surface of the leaf, is more, then it will not allow the light to come in. So, and also the distribution of stomata, that is the pores. If the pores are not many, and also that the distribution, if they are many or if they are less, that also affect the rate of photosynthesis. The size of the leaf also influences the rate of photosynthesis. So these are the few factors which will influence the photosynthesis. Apart from that, the amount of light and also the amount of CO2 entering into the leaf. Of course, this amount of light and amount of CO2 are affected by the thickness of cuticle, distribution of stomata, and the size of the leaf. All these factors, both internal and external factors, affect the rate of photosynthesis.